Okay, I'm just going to get the thumbs up. Jenny, we're all still okay for Q&A, right? Okay, yeah. Yeah, people think I'm in control. Jenny's the one in control. I look to her for the answers, right? Yeah. I think we've had some really fantastic perspectives, and I think there's some areas where I think there's very clearly sort of quite violent agreement that locally, regardless of the different models that might be taking place, is that people who are driving it want agency and ownership. And so I'm going to ask for a couple of questions from you shortly. I'm going to ask one question myself. I will say, whilst you're thinking of your question, no plugs, monologues, or secret pitches that are master's questions where you hastily add a question mark at the end. I will move on from those ones. Try and think about the rest of the audience when you're asking your question in terms of general purpose. So my question is, there's a lot of vision, there's a lot of agency, there's a lot of things that people want to get right, that people want to take. I'm going to sort of borrow from, what Margaret was talking about. It's about taking the initiative, not trying to sit within the rules. And, so many things that Manal was talking about in terms of, sort of this is the last chance, it's the last roll of the dice, and often in the system, nothing really gets the time to actually properly bed in. I think we need to recognise at the moment that we're in a very hot political environment, right? And we have a government that's under pressure. And I guess my question is, how do we protect this? How do we make sure that we have enough space and tolerance in this environment to make this story different, to make sure that this story is one of this grassroots bottom-up movement? So we can say with pride in 5 years that we preserved and protected this, because the vision is great, but we can't, if it ends up being something that we get disassembled, then we're back here in, I don't know what we're doing. I don't want discussing in 5 years, given the political environment. So I'd like to go to Manal first. I'd just check your mic's working okay. That's your mic. Yeah, it was a secret prop.
Secret. I think it's a really good question. So I think my first reflection is that I had the joy of reading all 141 applications for the NHIP. And it was really, really clear to me. They were all inspirational, lots of people doing brilliant, brilliant stuff. But the ones that had really progressed the most had devolved budgets, pulled budgets, and devolved decision-making to place. And that was really, really clear. So I think the evidence is almost there that if you start to let go of control, that top-down diktat, micromanagement, and push it towards place and to those that actually are doing the do and delivering, working with their communities, you start to see the outcomes. I would argue, Liam, that actually if this government doesn't deliver neighbourhood health, then actually they've got nothing else. So it is the political imperative. And through the public consultation on the 10-year plan, it was also really interesting that the public really fully recognised that health was wider than health care, and they wanted a 10-year health plan, not a 10-year health care plan. So I think the public voice needs to be really emphasised, given a platform in some of this, as we described the social movement. But like I said, the places are actually getting on and doing this. So we need to showcase what is happening on the ground. We need to give places voice. We need to give communities and the public voice. And that then starts to create that political, starts to shift that power from a political perspective. And fundamentally, for me, the 10-year plan is about value-based care. It's really clear we can't afford to continue on our current trajectory, so we need to shift. It's very, very clear about the outcomes. It's very, very clear about the changes that it expects to see at the centre. It is really clear about the behavioural shifts. Now, I know a plan is just a plan, and it's just a piece of paper, but that has been sort of politically ratified. So it's almost then how politically, Secretary of State and others are going to hold people to account for sort of following through on the behaviours and the new ways that they're expecting to see. I also think that there is a lot of work happening more widely outside of the NHS, so wider government, MHL, CLG, the place partnerships, the a huge amount of kind of community regeneration work that is happening across wider government. So this is about leveraging wider government officials and departments as part of this, not just focusing on the Department of Health and Social Care alone, in kind of driving that pressure to change how we work. But I think fundamentally it comes back to the evidence. The evidence shows it delivers on both NHS priorities as well as wider population priorities. So for me, results are currency. Through the implementation programme, it is very much about outcomes focus. It's about rigour in delivery, giving people the agency to get on and do, but being rigorous in measurement and tracking outcomes. And if we can start to demonstrate that dial turning, giving them the permission to get on and do, then I think you start to create the momentum behind this. And there is a huge amount of momentum. We've had, 300 people at our design day. 83% of the country bought in. Our national community of practice is growing and growing. We're going to have another, hopefully, 500 people from this audience joining our community of practice as well. But I think it's creating that coalition of determined to move this forwards. And I think, that is, I suppose, the essence of a revolution, isn't it?
Yeah. Devolve power as much as we can, because it's harder to take it back once we've done. Show people that they can have power and they can do that.
And hardwire it.
Yep, and
hardwire it with the funding flows. Before leadership changes or something changes in regulation.
Exactly, which can always happen. Margaret, you started to talk about the about taking power, not waiting for someone within the lines to give you permission to do something. I'd love to get your additional comments on this.
Well, I think for me, very briefly, it's down to collaboration, value and trust. I'm mindful that if we don't look after the people that look after the people, we're going to get nowhere with whatever plan we come up with. I'm also mindful that I have members of staff in my local trust and also in general practice that worry about their safety, actual physical safety in the current geopolitical climate, just going to try and deliver that care. We need to deal with the flux of change, and it's very difficult sometimes when I remember days of GP fund holding, and as our president said, we've had STBs, we've had SHAs, we've had PCTs, we've had PCNs, ICBs, the list goes on. I've always worked in a neighbourhood for the last 16 years. And it's encouraging to know that you've had so many applications, because people are already doing the stuff that we know that it's good. But it really, for me, it's about trust. The government does need to trust us that we can be autonomous in terms of delivering a devolved budget to the communities that are close to us, because we know what their needs are. So that's where I'm coming from.
Fantastic. Fatima and Kim.
I think you really stole my thunder here when it came to because I think we've already been doing neighbourhood-based work day to day, really, as a GP. The amount of time I picked up the phone, spoke to the district nurse, to palliative care team, to the social worker. But it's just really removing these barriers rather than being on the phone for 4 hours trying to get hold of one person. If we are all one team around with the patient at the centre, I think that's what we want. And if it comes to just giving it the label as a neighbourhood, let's be it, because that will mean that we've got that team all in one place.
Fantastic. Any final words, Kim? I will say, unfortunately, that I'm going to blame Jenny. I'm blaming you, Jenny. Jenny has said we're going to exchange questions for croissants, so apologies on that one.
We are. We're going to be doing questions
do feel free to ask after the
if
session.
that's all right, because otherwise we're going to run too far over and everybody wants a coffee and stuff. So,
I think really for me, there's the words "don't wait" would come to mind. I think there are some areas that are absolutely galloping ahead, and there's some areas and I would include our particular county in that are struggling a little bit and sort of waiting for somebody to make that move. And actually, it's us to make that move, and it might be starting on something quite small, but we need to make those links with our peers within our local health economies. And I think the other thing that I sort of recognise from sort of working within primary care leading into a secondary care organisation, it's amazing how much we don't know about each other, even down to a referral form. I sit with our colleagues and I'll say, let's just have a look at that form that you're thinking of redesigning. Oh, a GP knows this already, don't you? No. So I think, having those conversations, reaching out, saying we want to work with you in order to make this better and more seamless, and, and bringing the patient in as part of that pathway redesign is incredibly important.
Thank you. Thank you very much to all of the speakers and now Q&A panelists, and thank you all for listening. I hope you found it really helpful. And as we said, croissants, coffee, all of the good things that you need are out there. Just one final thanks to the panel.